Yeah, and I think we're going to go into Shoma's team first off. So this is a really interesting team, right? Because when you kind of look at the 6, you're kind of like, okay, this is a standard 6. When you start to look at the Terra types and the items, it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
So starting off, the Rillaboom has Grassy Seed, so it basically gives itself a defense boost when it sets up the terrain. Which is basically what it does when it comes into the battle, right? And then you've got the Dragonite, which has got the Haze, Scale Shot, and Stomping Tantrum, but it's also got Terra Steel, Iron Head. So it can potentially punish those Terra Fairies, or those Fairy types who want to come in, to punish like the Scale Shot. You've also got Archaludon, Terra Electric, Power Herb, Sturdy, right? But normally you see the Terra Electric Stalwart, which kind of ignores Follow Me users. So that's really interesting as well. You've also got coaching on the Sneasler, it's Terra Ghost as well, which is quite a standard set. But it is the Poison Touch over the Unburden as well. And then this Porygon is Terra Fire, which I don't think I've seen in this format before. So it's still got the Eviolite item, it's still got like pretty standard moves for a Porygon, but Terra Fire is really interesting here. And then finally you've got the King Gambit, this Terra Flying Assault Vest, which pairs quite well with usually an Earthquake team, so I'm interested in the Terra Flying, but I guess it punishes like opposing Rillabooms and such.
It's interesting looking at this team, like, there's clearly so much nuance and very intentional choices being made. Like, Shoma didn't just grab a paste of some old team and then just, like, use it directly. There's a lot of thought that went into each of these little techs, and I think that that's really interesting because each of those can be, like, a bit of a trap for another player. If you're expecting playing against Porygon 2 to feel one way, and then suddenly it can turn into a fire type and resist all of the fire type attacks you're going to throw at it, suddenly the game looks very different. And so being able to bring just like a little bit of unfamiliarity into a match is a really strong thing for Shoma to be able to do. Before we forget, we should shout out one of the most impressive CVs in Pokemon history. Shoma Honami was a part of Japan when they got top 4 in World Cup last year. Is, of course, the 2015 World Champion and the 2015 Japanese National Champion from that same year, and got top 8 in the National Championships in 2013. So just really took the world by storm many years ago, and remains just an incredibly powerful Pokemon player to this day.
Yes, of course, just to finish on that, it's like they've got like a bit of an 8-year gap going on there, right? So maybe they took a bit of a break and they've come back to VGC, but instantly had an impact with that World Cup top 4. I think we're going to move on now to Chaiyawat's team.
Chaiyawat's team is
sorry, I didn't go on.
Really interesting here. The Murkrow here, the Dondozo Tatsugiri option, so going to be important to keep in mind that Shoma's Dragonite has Haze, so Chaiyawat's going to have to be able to adjust a little bit. But a lot of really interesting and very powerful Pokemon, the kind of team that if you aren't prepared for it when you're facing it, can kind of just decisively win a match immediately. So a lot of really interesting options here. The Goldengo, the Sneasler, the Dragapult, all just so much offense on this side of the field.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what's interesting is, you know, usually you see if you have Dondozo on your team, you see Haze on the opposing team, you're tempted to not bring the Dondozo at all. However, this is a Trick Room team potentially with the Porygon. It's quite a slow team outside of +1 Scale Shot Dragonite and Sneasler on Shoma's team. So thinking about the Murkrow here with Tailwind, like it's kind of risky to bring that into a Porygon matchup potentially. So if you're not bringing Dondozo or Tatsugiri, I'm interested to see what they choose to do. Just to cover this player's profile as well, the World Cup champion for Thailand 2022, World Top 32 in 2022 as well, Asia Players Top 4 in 2021, and 2 times Thailand National Champion. So their CV is, wow, that is a strong CV from Chaiyawat coming out here.
Yeah. He's such an incredible player. A lot of the really tight matches from Thailand's World Cup Championship were all coming down to his plays and some really interesting teams he had. I'm really excited to get to see him play again. He's definitely a force to be reckoned with. And if there's someone that Thailand would want to be facing down Shoma Honami, I think Chaiyawat's definitely up there. A really great option. We're going to be going into the game shortly, but is there anything else we wanted to shout out about this team?
I think I'm good. I think they have a potential with the choice specs Goldengo as well, Terra Steel, and that's going to be hitting straight away very hard, right? I'm interested in this, but I think we're going to get into the game now. I'd be interested to see what they lead.
Jump right into that game and see those leads. It looks like it's going to be the Sneasler and that Goldengo you were just mentioning, Sean, on the chop from Chaiyawat, and Porygon 2 with that strange Terra type, going to get a download boost. And the King Gambit also hitting the field there. So Steel types facing down, and then a Sneasler versus a supportive Porygon 2.
Yes, of course. I assume it was a special attack boost looking at the two opposing Pokemon on Chaiyawat's side. We can get in the bit of a sneak preview what they have in the back here. So they do have the Dragonite and the Caledon as well. It's interesting they lead the Porygon, maybe thinking they would maybe lead Murkrow, but yeah, it's obviously weak to close combat from Sneasler. And equally, Sneasler could just there's no fake out on this Sneasler's Throat Chop. So it can't fake out. But what it can do is obviously threaten massive damage on turn 1 here.
So a lot of damage being threatened. Porygon 2 is sort of one of the best Pokemon to be able to try to take that damage. I think that Fire Terastallization really helpful for potentially handling Make-It Rains. And Kingambit's actually going to switch out, maybe particularly concerned about that close combat threat. Going to go into the Archaludon, which has that sturdy ability, one of the unique choices on Shoma's side of the field, so it's sort of a safe switch in if it only takes 1 attack. Porygon 2 is going to Terastallize, does not want to have to deal with the choice specs Make-It Rain. And we saw it had locked into that Trick Room earlier, so we'll have to see if it survives to do that. In the meantime, Close Combat going to take that Archaludon down to 1 hit point. Sturdy activating, keeping it around, but that Goldengo is about to be able to attack as well, and might just finish it off. It's going to go for a Trick, though, giving Porygon 2 the choice specs and taking that Eviolite away. So really neat choice there. I suppose I'm just assuming that that's what's happening. We're watching this in Japanese. But Porygon 2 is going to go into a Trick Room here, and so that's going to set things up pretty well for the Archaludon.
Yes, exactly. So the Archaludon does manage to come in there and survive. The key thing here is the Porygon is tricked now, so it's now locked into that Trick Room. So if you're Chaiyawat, you're kind of assuming it's gonna swap out here, and that Sneasler is Focus Sash as well. So Goldengo is free to do whatever it likes, right? It can click Make It Rain, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt. And I think the Sneasler can just attack safely into that Porygon slot, knowing it has to switch out. And he knows there's a Kingambit. They obviously don't know what the other Pokemon is yet. But yeah, I'm interested to see like what Chaiyawat does here. If he takes a hit from the Archaludon, because it's obviously going to be the slowest thing on the field now, outside of Porygon. So, well, the fastest thing, because we're in Trick Room.
It's a really awkward position for Shoma to be into. It's a really interesting answer to Trick Room to sort of just say, all right, you can get your Trick Room, but your Porygon 2 is going to be in a really awkward spot, and I'm going to have some pressure this next turn. It looks like Dragonite's what Shoma's elected to have as the switch-in.
Oh.
It's going to have to take a Make It Rain, and it turns out, yeah, the Goldengo is slower than the Archaludon, so Trick Room really not working so well for Shoma just yet, as no damage has come out from Shoma's side yet, and Sneasler's going to get to go for a close combat into that Dragonite. So a good switch-in choice of the Dragonite rather than the Kingambit. Kingambit would not have been happy taking that close combat.
Yeah, I think the close combat there makes total sense, because Chaiyawat knows there's a Kingambit, so if you click Diaclaw, it's kind of useless into a Steel type. So clicking close combat there definitely makes sense, and I'm surprised that Goldengo is faster in Trick Room than the Archaludon there. Usually Goldengo's, maybe it's modest Goldengo, but I'm not sure exactly the speed stats between a max speed Archaludon and a modest Goldengo. But that's super interesting that it's slow, so it's like maybe it's got some more bulk than we think here.
Yeah, I think really crucial information for Shoma to have going forwards, that you can't really rely on Trick Room to make the Archaludon slower than the Goldengo. I think maybe Shoma had been sort of hoping the Archaludon would just go down to the Make It Rain, but that trick and then having the Goldengo around later to put pressure on the Archaludon really made things a bit difficult for Shoma now. He's in a better spot now, he's got the Kingambit there and able to start attacking that Goldengo, but still, things are maybe not going exactly according to plan for Shoma so far.
Yeah, I think we've just seen Shoma lock into a double up into that Sneasler, which makes total sense here. Because it's got Focus Sash, you have to double it up to KO it. And these two Pokemon will be faster than it inside Trick Room. But it does protect here, and they bring out Murkrow in place of the Goldengo. And I think we're going to see 2 attacks into the Sneasler here. It's just going to protect from both.
Yeah, so great play from Chaiyawat's side, really limiting the effectiveness of Trick Room so far. I think Shoma still hasn't done damage yet in this game. Trying to find a good Trick Room position, but hasn't found it just yet. And the Murkrow here, there's not a ton it can do, but it does threaten the Quash. So this Dragonite might not be able to... This Dragonite doesn't have extreme speed. And so this Dragonite is actually something that Chaiyawat can force not to be able to attack before the Sneasler moves. So this is a really awkward position for Shoma yet again.
Yes, correct. And also this Kingambit is Assault Vested, not Protect. So I think it's quite safe for Chaiyawat to just click Quash on the Dragonite and click Close Combat into the Kingambit. I mean, sure, you take some damage, but you resist pretty much whatever the Kingambit could throw at you, except Terra Blast. which is not going to click, right? So yeah, I think it's quite a safe close combat into the King Gambit here. But we do see Dragonite actually retreat.
Dragonite switching out into that Porygon 2. Porygon 2 is going to get a download boost. It's also going to be in a really awkward spot because it still has that choice specs. It really has to just lock into something. Kowtow Cleave going to be able to take the Sneasler pretty low from that defense drop. Murkrow's Foul Play, not going to do too much to that Porygon 2, but the close combat going to finish off that King Gambit. So interestingly, Murkrow not even going for the Quash on the Dragonite, just going for some damage for now to try to bring it a little bit lower. But it doesn't matter because the Dragonite switched out, and now that King Gambit is gone, and Shoma's down to just 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's really interesting that they did not click Quash there, on the Chaiyawat side of the field, just because that Sneasler does risk going down to double up there. So I found that a really interesting prediction from Chaiyawat there. They probably knew that they were likely to switch out the Dragonite, so they didn't risk the Quash there and just click Foul Play instead, which will cover if the Dragonite stayed in as well, because it probably KOs it from that range.
Yeah, definitely. Or maybe, like, for some reason, needing to take out that Dragonite quicker. Regardless, now we're looking at... I'm not sure if Shoma has enough damage, because that Quash is an option yet again. I guess this is a bit of an awkward spot, though. We're going to see Terrablast come out with the Terastallization. Going to finish off the Sneasler. So poor little Murkrow just has to keep going for Foul Plays to try to take this Dragonite a little bit lower. But that is enough for a KO, so maybe that's why that was being gone for earlier. And it is now Porygon 2. We know what move it will be clicking for the rest of the game. I think we're just out of Trick Room now. And it depends on what Chaiyawat's last Pokemon is, but probably most of the things that I think anything Chaiyawat could be bringing is going to be pretty comfortable against that Porygon.
Yes, I think that was Dragapult, okay. So this Dragapult is choice banded, and it's got the Dragon Dance Outrage that you can just click Outrage here as an endgame choice. But I think we just do see the forfeit here from Shoma. They probably realise, you know, Porygon's it's not really going to do anything to the Dragon Ball here with the Terrified Terrablast.
Yep, so that's going to be the game. That trick, Choice Specs, was just really, really impactful. I think there's a world where maybe Porygon has some options, at least, against a lot of these Pokemon, if it can switch between Terra, Fire Blast, and Ice Beam, or if it can, like, reset Trick Room or use Recover or anything. And losing all of that and the bulk just, like, it made Shoma's positioning a lot worse. It made it, like, really hard to be able to just get consistent damage. And as soon as that happened, it was just really hard for Shoma to come back from that trick at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's really tempting when you see a Sneasler Goldenga choice specs to just click Make It Rain, close combat. But instead, we do see that trick on turn 1, which is set Chaiyawat up really, really well for the remaining of the game. Because as you said, it shuts down the Porygon completely. Like if it comes in, it can only click one move, right? It can't just Bam Recover in Trick Room and just absorb lots of damage from Chaiyawat's side. So that was really well played from the side of Chaiyawat.
And then I think also we have that crucial information now that the Goldengo is also really slow. And so setting up Trick Room, A, you might get locked into setting Trick Room because it could trick the choice specs onto you. And B, if you have your Archuludon out to try to do damage in Trick Room, it won't work. You'll be slower than that Goldengo. So that just, I think, gives Shoma a lot to think about. Like the lead and strategy he was using so far aren't going to work going forwards. So I'm really excited to see how he's adjusting going into the game too.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at Rillaboom. His Terrifier, so resist Make It Rain. It's also got the Grassy Seed defense boost as well. So that could be an interesting decision. But then what's it really going to do to a Sneasler and a Goldengo? It does have high horsepower, so it can threaten with that. But it's not Assault Vested, so it's still going to take a ton of damage from, say, a Terra Steel Make It Rain, even if it Terrifiers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just an open question where Shoma finds the damage that he's going to need to go into the rest of the game. Rillaboom definitely seems like a strong option, but I think you just need to find the right partner. It looks like we don't have to wait too much longer to find out, though. We're ready to jump into Game 2, so we'll have to see what Shoma's chosen as his lead for the second game. Unsurprisingly, same lead from Chaiyawat, going to be that Sneasler and Goldengo. And it looks like another Sneasler and a different Steel type from Shoma's side of the field.
Yes, so this Sneasler on Shoma's side of the field does have Coaching and Fake Out, whereas the Sneasler on Chaiyawat's side of the field, as talked before, it doesn't have Coaching or Fake Out. So this is super interesting here. It's Terra Dark Sneasler on the other side, so you could just Fake Out that Sneasler and just attack the Goldengo slot with the King Gambit, for example. This is probably a much better turn 1 for Shoma than the last game.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like this lead going into this first round. I think even like the coaching and the terrestrialization are really strong options. I think you can always play the Dire Claw game with the other Sneasler. We are getting pretty down to the wire with the choices on moves, though. It looks like Sneasler's going to go for a Protect on Chaiyawat's side of the field. And then there's a Sucker Punch into the Goldengo, almost knocking it out almost immediately. And then I think a attack of some sort into that Goldengo. Not quite sure what the Japanese was there, as a Make It Rain comes back into the other side of the field.
Yeah, it could have been. It's probably close combat to cover the Terra Steel, perhaps, or a swap.
Yeah, I think so.
That was very well played by Chaiyawat there. Nice turn, protecting the Sneasler, preserving its Focus Sash, taking that Sneasler almost down to its Focus Sash on Shoma's side of the field. Get some decent damage into King Gambit, not that much realistically, but the Sneasler now just threatened that King Gambit as well with with its own close combat on the other side of the field.
Yeah, I think also just like Goldengo continuing to be just the bane of Shoma's existence, being able to survive that dark type attack from the King Gambit really makes things difficult now. I guess you can still threaten a lot of damage going forwards, but this King Gambit is in sort of an increasingly vulnerable position with the Sneasler, and it looks like it might just have to terrestrialize to get out of the threat of that close combat from the Sneasler on the other side of the field. That's what we're going to see right now. King Gambit going into that flying type, so Shoma's not going to be able to terrestrialize anything else for the rest of the game, but is going to be safe for this turn from the Sneasler at least. That's something. As the Sucker Punch finishes off the Goldengo, and then we'll have to see what these Sneaslers get up to as that Goldengo goes down.
Yes, I'm assuming it's going to be... Okay, it's just into the imposing Sneasler. It does actually win that speed tie. I'm assuming it's a speed tie, but not exactly sure. Because they're both Focus Sash. So that does go down. And they do get the Terra Flying out of the King Gambit as well. So ultimately, 1-for-1 that turn. But probably Chaiyawat slightly better off, just because they did get the Terra out. From Shoma as well, so I'm thinking depends what they have in the back here. But if they, if they could bring in Dragapult in a decent-ish position, could still Terra to Terra Dragon, survive a Sucker Punch, and then get some high-hitting Dragon Darts off, for example.
Yeah, I think Chaiyawat having his choice of offensive Pokemon to be able to bring in here is really powerful. I think that Dragapult probably the strongest. I guess if it's the Dondozo and Tatsugiri in the back, that's an option here as well. We're seeing Shoma think carefully about what to bring in. It is going to be that Dragonite, which pretty strong for being able to do some damage to the Sneasler. And I guess it does resist some attacks from the Dondozo, but that Dondozo being on the field likely means that Tatsugiri is in the back, and an Order Up would be pretty difficult for that Dragonite to deal with if it has to start taking hits from a boosted Dondozo.
Yes. However, this Dragonite does have Haze here, so there's a few plays that Chaiyawat could make. They could try and break the multi-scale on the Dragonite and just protect the Dozo here, or just attack with both, or just straight swap in the Tatsugiri. And unless you say Order Up Dragonite, it is multi-scale, so it won't take as much damage. But yeah, this is interesting. They brought the Dondozo. I was not expecting them to bring this into a Haze Dragonite.
Yeah, it's interesting. It could even just be a solo Dondozo, because the Dragapult seemed like it was a really strong choice last time. But I guess the advantage of bringing out Dondozo first is you just don't know. It looks like it's going to be a Dire Claw, traded with a Scale Shot. That's sort of being the reason why Dragonite is running Scale Shot, to be able to have the option to KO Sneasler here, as it's about to be doing. That 4 hits, they don't even need to know if it would be 5. That's going to take the Sneasler down. But that multi-scale being broken means that if it is the Tatsugiri in the back, things might get a little bit difficult. Sneasler's fainted. Yeah. The step changes are happening on this Dragonite, and we'll have to see what this Dondozo goes for.
It is an Order Up into that Dragonite, and nearly KOs it as well, because with that defense drop, it's obviously doing a bit more damage. Decent damage from the King Gambit with Kowtow Cleave into that Dozo. It's interesting to see what Chaiyawat... It is Tatsugiri as well.
So I think really smart thinking to be getting that Dragonite so low, and then to get the Dondozo out. I think, I'm not sure off the top of my head, I think it probably depends on how the Dondozo's trained for which Pokemon is faster now after the Scale Shot. If Dragonite can just get off the Haze right away, that's potentially just game winning right there. But if this Dondozo is faster than the Dragonite, it's going to be plenty comfortable getting that Order Up off and potentially steamrolling the rest of the team with Earthquakes.
Yes, I think you're bang on there. I think this turn will be crucial for either player here. Okay, it's Dragonite that is faster, and it does get that Haze off. So the Dozo is now just back to neutral. And it's going for an order after the Dragon Knight. That's huge. That is huge. And they also get the KO back on the Dragon Knight for the click of the haze, but the fact that Dragon Knight was faster, that's a crucial turn.
Yeah, Dondozo now at +1 attack, but that's not going to be enough to steamroll through an Archeludon, especially not an Archeludon that has Sturdy. So I think even that King Gambit is maybe almost in range of finishing off the Dondozo with a Sucker Punch at this point. And I don't think that Tatsugiri is going to be too comfortable here. So finally, Shoma has a speed order that's working in his favor here with the Scale Shot from the Dragonite designed to put that Dragonite faster than the Dondozo, giving him some options here after last game having some trouble with the speed order with Trick Room. And yeah, Chaiyawat, recognizing that, going to just go ahead and lock in the forfeit. Going to think about another game plan for this third game. Maybe not going to be bringing that Tatsugiri now that he knows about this crucial speed interaction.
Absolutely. I think if you win game 1, it's definitely potentially worth bringing Dondozo in game 2. Just in case you don't bring the Dragonite, or that you can deal with the Dragonite prior to the Dondozo combining with the Tatsugiri. But yeah, it's really crucial information. The Dragonite at +1, it does outspeed Dondozo, who's +2. I think you're right. I don't think they would risk bringing Dondozo again, just now that they know that interaction exists. So it'd be interesting to see what they do in game 3 now, both players actually.
Yeah, I think both players now know about like a really crucial speed interaction that they might not have been 100% sure of before going into the game. We know the Goldengo is pretty slow. We know that the Dragonite is fast enough relative to the Dondozo. And so where Shoma sort of chose not to bring Porygon 2 because of the Goldengo in game 1, now Chaiyawat can choose maybe not to bring the Tatsugiri with the Dondozo in game 2. And now both players sort of like know enough information about each other's training and spreads that I'm really curious what they use for their strategies going into this last game.
Yeah, I think Goldengo lead for Chaiyawat is also really good because we know it now survives a Sucker Punch without Terror. So yeah, it's going to be good into whatever Shoma can bring into turn 1 as well. So I'm probably expecting to see that Goldengo lead again from Chaiyawat here.
Yeah, something I'd be curious about seeing is whether maybe there's just not a lot of Pokemon that can do damage to the Goldengo to finish it off after the Sucker Punch. I'm curious if maybe the Archeludon comes in the beginning. Like, we know that it's faster than the Goldengo, so maybe it winds up being a choice to bring outside of Trick Room. But then there is still so much risk with the Sneasler. It can cause so much trouble.
Exactly, you know, they can just double up into that Archeludon slot. But however, we do know Archeludon is faster than Goldengo, so it proved to be an interesting interaction in game 3. I believe game 3 is ready, so we're going to hop right in.
Yeah, jumping into this game 3, gonna have to see what leads Japan and Thailand are bringing to this third game of this set. Gonna be the standard lead from Chaiyawat, 2 Pokemon that are working really effectively, and it is that Rillaboom actually that you mentioned, Sean, as a potential adjustment. And the Porygon 2 is back this time, ready to risk its battle with Goldengo once more.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? Because the Rillaboom's obviously can Terra away from the Make It Rain, but if they just click Trick into Porygon again, yeah, sure, you get a Trick Room up, but you're stuck as Porygon then, you can't really do much else. But it is a free Fake Out to the Sneeze, so it's not Terra Ghost, so I expect to see that, and we do see that.
Ton of damage coming out with the Fake Out onto that Sneasler. Trick is going to happen again. I think both players are probably expecting that. Shoma willing to just accept that here. I guess there is the advantage of getting rid of the choice specs on the Goldengo, which reduces its damage output a little bit. But this Porygon 2 is going to have to either set Trick Room back to normal again the next turn, or switch out going forwards. And there aren't a lot of Pokemon that are going to be really thrilled to be switching into Make It Rain, Shadow Ball, Dire Claw, or Close Combat from these Pokemon.
Yeah, precisely. I think Shoma's in a difficult position again, but the Rillaboom is still in a good position. It should be the fastest thing on the field now, and it does threaten high horsepower into both slots here. You've got Goldengo Terra Steel, so it's still going to take super effective damage from that. Obviously, the Sneasler is Terra Dark, so it could Terra away from this and try and Dire Claw the Rillaboom back potentially. Or they could just double target that other slot that is likely to switch out here because it's stuck on using Trick Room.
Yeah, it's a really interesting choice. Shoma sort of has to pick a Pokemon to sacrifice, which is not really what you want to be doing on turn 2 of Trick Room. It looks like it's switching out into that. I think King Gambit is what we saw being selected. Yep. So really gambling on a Close Combat not coming into this slot. We're going to see a Terastallization happening on Chaiyawat's side of the field, I believe, making sure that Sneasler can survive through a potential high horsepower. So if this is a Close Combat into the King Gambit slot after surviving a high horsepower, that's going to be really bad for Shoma. We're going to see it's a Wood Hammer, though, calling the Terastallization. That's a working! And the Sneasler's down, and the Terra's down, and the Kingambit is safe. That's so cool.
Oh, what an incredible play by Shoma. Good prediction. Amazing play. That does, that saves the Kingambit potentially here. That was probably a close combat going into that slot. Because the Chaiyawat knew there was Kingambit. So that's really interesting to me that they did that. What a good play. Wow.
Yeah, really cool. It's so hard, I think, to think about, like, oh, I could use my strong grass attack on this poison type, but it totally makes sense here. It was a brilliant call from Shoma. And we see that the Dondozo actually is a bring for this third game from Chaiyawat. So 2 Pokemon sitting on Chaiyawat's side of the field that are both quite vulnerable to the things that Kingambit and Rillaboom can do.
Yeah, precisely. And you can try and sort out these Trick Rooms, Trick Room turns. There's 3 left. The Dozo's obviously like quite weak to Rillaboom now. So I think we're either going to see Tatsugiri just straight swap in here, or we're going to see a Protect, likely from the Dondozo, but it should be slower than the Rillaboom inside Trick Room without any boosts. So potentially get an attack off into the Kingambit, but I don't anticipate it doing a lot of damage unless it's boosted by the Tatsugiri, which means it'll be slower than the Rillaboom in the Trick Room. So this is an interesting turn here.
Yeah, absolutely a super interesting turn. It looks like Shoma wants to maybe save some of that fake out pressure for the Rillaboom going forwards. It's going to switch out into this Choice Specs Porygon 2. Porygon 2 is going to get another download boost, almost certainly special attack against that Dondozo. Goldengo's also going to switch out. Not super thrilled to be sitting on the field at -1 special attack. And going to bring in that Tatsugiri. So as you mentioned, there's this option now to try to stall through a lot of the Trick Room with a +2/+2/+2/+2/+2 Dondozo. And Kingambit's going to be able to do an attack after we see all those boosts, but I think it might have just been into that Goldengo. So likely the big question remaining in this turn is just what that Dondozo went for, and maybe how much that Earthquake does if it happens to be that.
Oh,
but it's just to protect.
Yeah.
Stalling out that Trick Room.
Okay, yeah, because it makes sense, because Goldengo cannot protect. So it makes sense to save that for later, outside the Trick Room turns, and just protect the Dozo and just swapping the Tatsugiri here. That just makes sense in hindsight. It's not really a play that I considered they would do. So there is 2 turns of Trick Room left here. They have got Kingambit out with Porygon with a special attack boost, but the Dondozo does have Unaware. I think if I'm Shoma, I try and prioritize getting this Dragonite in safely. But it's hard to call that, I guess. But you could... It depends. All depends what the Dondozo is going to be clicking here. It's likely going to be clicking Earthquake though, so it kind of depends if Chaiyawat predicts Dragonite to swap in, over the Gambit slot, for example, or yeah. So it's kind of a tricky situation for both players, I would say here.
Yeah, I think Chaiyawat's just sort of trying to play like whack-a-mole with which slot switches to Dragonite, and can I catch it with an order up? Because if he does, then he's done a ton of damage to a Pokemon that could otherwise haze the Dondozo. But if Shoma gets Dragonite in safely, then that puts him in a really great position. Porygon 2 going for sort of the only choice it has in the meantime, just going for a Terra Blast. And Dondozo called it! Gets the order up. That's not going to KO, though, because of multi-scale. So this Dragonite still has a chance, unless this Dondozo is super slow, this Dragonite's still going to have a chance to haze before Trick Room is up. And that's going to be really nice for Shoma. So I think Chaiyawat did the best he could this turn, but it's definitely still in a tough spot. You can haze, get rid of the boosts, and then sort of Dondozo's stuck on the field for a while without really very much going for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this Terra Blast after haze will do quite a lot of damage to the Dondozo. It is Specs Porygon, don't forget now. But yeah, absolutely correct on your end. I think Chaiyawat made the best play they could in that situation, but I think unfortunately for them, the haze will come out now. It's quite a safe play for Shoma to make as well. So we're definitely going to see that, and probably just likely a Terra Blast into the Dondozo.
I guess there's one question, which is it possible that this Dondozo is just like super slow and then it can knock out the Dragonite? So Shoma, maybe for that reason, or maybe just to keep the Dragonite around after the haze, is going to go for a safe Terra here to try to make sure that he doesn't have to worry about an order up finishing him off through multi-scale. Terra Blast, Porygon 2's only choice is going to continue to chip away at that Dondozo. Haze is going to happen before the Dondozo attacks, and then Dondozo going to be able to just use a normal unboosted attack, likely that order up into the Dragonite. So really neat Terra here, Shoma sort of saying that it's worth the Terrestrialization just to keep Dragonite around for another turn.
Yeah, precisely. I think there's 1 turn Trick Room left, if I'm not mistaken. That could be an ending, actually, I'm not sure. Either way, I think terraing the Dragonite is definitely a good play, because they're always going to click order up into that slot. The other 2 moves being Earthquake and Wave Crash, so it does enable the Dragonite to stick around. But I guess, like, what does it do now, right? Because his team is quite susceptible to Earthquake unless they get Grassy Terrain back on the field. Charge the damage of Earthquake, but Rillaboom is looking really solid here for like a potential endgame sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of really powerful Pokemon sort of sitting around, but it is a question how Shoma gets this positioning right. I think that is, in fact, Trick Room ending because it went up the same turn that Grassy Terrain went up, so Grassy Terrain being gone means Trick Room's gone. But we'll have to see. Like, it's a bit awkward this turn. There's no easy way to get damage to Dondozo immediately. This Porygon 2 sort of just has to take some time to slowly chip it down. We're going to see Dragonite re-hazing, making sure that Order Up boost isn't active. I think that's really smart. Like, this Dondozo could still sort of get away with things if it keeps going for Order Ups. It's going to go for an Earthquake, going to finish off that Dragonite, I believe.
It goes down. Yeah. I thought it survived.
Being a free switch in for Shoma is a pretty big deal, as this Terra Blast is going to be able to bring this Dondozo pretty close to a KO here. So Shoma maybe has an opportunity to try to time a KO here, finishing off the Dondozo and then getting some damage into the Tatsugiri, which would be really helpful for him.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure what Choice Specs Terra Blast boosted special attack Porygon could take out. It surely does take out Tatsugiri, so you could Sucker Punch potentially with the King Gambit here. To finish off the Dondozo and then just Terra Blast the Tatsugiri, and it should, with essentially 2 attack boosts, special attack boosts, it should be enough damage to take it out.
Absolutely. So Shoma checking the speed order there to try to make sure that he knows the order of targeting to see which attack is going to go off into the Tatsugiri. Chaiyawat making the safe play of just getting another turn of just burning damage, trying to figure out who's going to protect and what the attacks will be. No reason not to protect while you plan out this endgame. But we're going to have to see what this order is and how much damage Shoma's able to get out. It's definitely not a question now of whether the Dondozo goes down, but just sort of like how much it costs Shoma and how much damage goes onto the Tatsugiri afterwards.
Oh, that's actually really
smart. It looks
like
a double protect there from the Dondozo, going to bring it down to now the Tatsugiri taking a Kowtow Cleave from this King Gambit.
Yeah, I didn't think of that play where they could protect again and Sucker Punch doesn't go off. So it's actually really smart for both players there to go for that play, right? Because that's Chaiyawat's only play, is realistically for the King Gambit to click Sucker Punch, so the Tatsugiri doesn't get hit, right? When the Dozo inevitably gets KO'd. But now we're going to see Dengo and Tatsugiri. This is Choice Scarf Tatsugiri. So it could click, it's probably not going to kick Icy Wind in front of a King Gambit, but it will likely move first here, unless it gets Sucker Punch, of course. But then if you're not Sucker Punching, if you're Sucker Punching Tatsugiri... Oh, okay,